Okay there folks, what we're going to be doing in this video is replacing the coolant glow plugs. Now, not to confuse you, they're not the glow plugs that go into the top of the cylinder head to help start the engine. There's three of them actually located down here in this little elbow, and what their function is to assist in getting the coolant and the engine up to temperature as soon as possible. I've actually been noticing on this car for quite some time that it takes a long time to get warmed up, but you know, once it is warmed up it doesn't then cool back down as if the thermostat's stuck open, and it never overheats. So I'm not suspecting that the thermostat is at fault, but that these coolant glow plugs have failed. So I've already drained the coolant out of the system, otherwise when you pull these out it's going to go everywhere. You also need to take the air cleaner assembly out of the way, which I've made a separate little video of. Take off the engine top cover and take off the injection pump belt cover. If you have a TDI, the top screws are a T40. If you have a 2.5D, the top screws are a T30, and the bolts for the injection pump cover are 13mm. Okay, after you've got all the covers out the way, the next thing you want to do is take off the electrical connector there, which I've already done. Also, don't be alarmed if it, little bits of it start breaking off, because it's pretty old now, so a little bit of that is to be expected, unfortunately. And now you may need to use a screwdriver or something to sort of help work it upwards a little bit from the bottom. Just take your time with it, and don't force it, or you'll end up destroying it completely. Okay, what I think you need to get these out is a deep 12mm, so I'll give it a try. Yeah. Just keep in mind that these plugs have probably been in there for as long as the car's been around, so don't go forcing on them. For the first one, it seems you can get underneath there. For the other two, I'm just going to try now. Looks like what you're going to have to do is get an extension bar down there to get at them. I think you'll be able to leave this top mount in place more or less, but I think you'll have to take out this spacer, so there'll be two 10mm bolts on the back there to take out, but otherwise you should be able to work around that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray these three plugs down, which I should have done already really. Give them a little bit of time to soak and get them out, and then I'll be back with you. Okay everyone, I actually managed to get the two back plugs out without any problems whatsoever. Just literally first turn of the wrench and they came out, no problem at all. The front one, however, has given me a real fight. You can get it out about half a turn, put it back in about half a turn, and just weasel it backwards and forwards, half a turn, 3/4 of a turn. It is slowly coming out, but it's giving me a hell of a fight. So I soaked that one up some more, and I just thought, you know what, I'll test the other two plugs against the replacements, and well, you should consider this a lesson in why you should test things before you start taking them apart, in that those two plugs actually tested as good as new. So I brought my meter over here, tested the third one in the car, and that's fine as well. So I've obviously come up with the wrong diagnosis here as to why it's slow to warm up. You know, if anyone out there has got any other suggestions, as I say, I think the thermostat is okay, and these plugs test as okay, so maybe it's just a cool running engine. But I'll post the video up anyway, because it might help somebody who really does have to replace these. But first thing I would do, you know, if I was ever doing this job again, is, you know, take the air cleaner out, take the covers out the way, and then test them in situ. I really don't know why I didn't do that before, because that's what I've always done with the engine glow plugs. But you know, I've always been sure as to why it wasn't starting, and every time I tested them, they tested as bad, so were replaced. But yeah, so here's a lesson. Test before you go draining the coolant out and trying to pull the plugs out. Other thing I should say, I know you have to move that bracket back in order to get your extension down. That thing is very fragile, and I've actually broken mine. So I would advise not just to take those two bolts out, but to take the two bolts out of there as well, and remove that out of the car completely, so there's no risk of you bending it. Other than that, there's not much else I can report. It's a pretty straightforward process. And last thing I can perhaps say is that if this does go wrong and one of them strips out or something like that, that little sort of elbow that comes off the car there is actually replaceable. There's a bolt down the back there, and that would all come off. So you know, if this goes south, there is a plan B. So having fitted your new plugs, or in this case putting the old plugs back in, I decided to reuse the old ones, since that one's giving me a hell of a fight, and I don't want to push things, you know, to push my luck while I don't have to get it out. Unfortunately, the replacement plugs I've bought are actually very slightly longer on the electrical connector than the ones that are in. So if I put two of the new ones in and left one old one, I don't think the connector would seat properly onto that plug. So I'm just going to put them back in, put all this back together, tighten the bolts up on that mount, which you would have saw me doing in another video, and after that we've got one more task to do today. So I'll pick the filming back up after I've put all this back together, and of course I'll add on anything extra that I think might be necessary if I discover it along the way. But it's a pretty straightforward job, really. The worst thing you're going to encounter is the plugs being corroded in. So I hope you found this useful, and don't do what I did. We'll see you in the next one.